This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
Be advised that the views and opinions of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
Welcome to Usapang Bayan, and our episode for this evening is with our guest, former DILG Secretary, Mr. Raffy Alunan. So welcome to our show, Raffy, and I know that you've been here before with us, but it's always a pleasure to see you.
Well, thank you, George, for inviting me again. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Alam nyo, I heard na you've also filed your candidacy for the Senate for this coming elections,
right.
No?
I filed it on October 17, the day after I planed in from China after a 4-day visit with the Philippine Council for Foreign Relations. We were invited there by the Chinese government for a track 2 dialogue.
Wow.
And on the last day, I filed as a member and trustee of Bagong Bayan Party, which was founded by Senator Dick Gordon.
Yes,
The same party that I ran under in 2016.
that's right.
Yes.
So, essentially, you have been in government service in the previous administrations, no? During even the time of Cory, no?
Yes,
President
I served
Cory.
under 2 administrations,
Yes.
George.
Can you
President
tell us a
Cory,
little bit about that?
Yes,
To
President
refresh
Cory
the minds of
and
people.
President Eddie Ramos. No? Well, in the case of President Cory, I came in 1989 during the third wave of cabinet changes, no? Because the first 2 were very contentious. And so our mission was to make sure that she finishes her term and that there would be a peaceful handover of the presidency to her successor. And that was meant to keep the fires of freedom and democracy alive. But during those 3 years when I was in the DOT, I was rocked by various emergencies and crises, no? Where we had to quickly come together as a team and resolve the problems. The first was the 1989 coup, where more than 2,000 civilians and tourists were trapped in the Makati Business District because of the conflict between military rebels and the government forces. And my job was to get a ceasefire and extricate the civilians from harm's way. That was done. It was a marvelous collaboration between the rebel forces, the government forces, and the tourism industry, including support from the DOTC at the time, who provided buses for the tourists that were bused from the commercial district to the duty-free shop, where they were processed by their different embassies. That collaboration took place within 24 hours, paspasan. And the nice thing about it was that we all came around to the point where we had to elevate our sense of nobility as Filipinos to one where we had to save lives.
Tama.
And so everybody just, rallied around that idea, and we successfully were able to do so with everybody's cooperation, rebel forces, government forces, and the private sector. The other crisis that we were rocked with was the Pinatubo crisis, where many of our tourist destinations were, especially in Central Luzon, were leveled. And I remember helping Senator Gordon, who was then mayor of Olongapo, who was struggling to get Olongapo back on its feet. Then the Baguio earthquake. The Baguio earthquake devastated the city, and again we had to mobilize and collaborate with the Department of National Defense, with then Secretary Fidel Ramos, to look for tourists trapped in Baguio and to bring them out of harm's way. Subsequently, when I shifted to the DILG, now under President Fidel Ramos, my exposure to crisis didn't stop.
It increased.
It increased tenfold, because here we were dealing with crime, insurgency, terrorism, secession across the board. At the same time, we were struggling with the implementation of new laws, the PNP law, the local government code, and of course ARMM. This was a full-time job. In fact, we were saying that we were working 25 hours a day, 8 days a week. But it
Kulang.
kulang na kulang, pero it was very fulfilling and meaningful, kasi hindi tayo nag-iisa doon sa effort na yon, no? We were working collaborating with a lot of people, especially with our stakeholders, and enjoying every moment of it in terms of going through the same hardship, trying to resolve problems, and actually every now and then achieving victories here and there, and seeing the happy faces of those who were served. And so those were very fruitful years for me in government. Actually, there were 7 years, only 7 years, because most of the time I was in the private sector. But those were 7 long years as far as my family was concerned.
Yes.
That's why I had to go back to them, because I was slowly drifting away, since most of my time was spent outside of the home.
But what made you want to go back to government service?
I mean, today,
Yes, that's why you filed for your candidacy.
you know, George, if there's one word in our political environment that does not exist, it's continuity. So many of the things that we put in place during the time of President Cory Aquino, and President Ramos, to alleviate or reduce poverty, to grow the economy, to restore peace and order, to actually bring back peace with justice, so that we can move forward as a nation, and to harness the power of the people, to engage and actually chart their own future. No? Nawala, it was discontinued, mainly because I would think that nag-seep in uli yung ugali ng traditional politics, which is ako bago bayan, no? Self-service before public service, self-interest before national interest, self-good before common good, no? At on account of that, the countries that were behind us, economically, culturally, socially, militarily, are now way ahead of us.
That's correct.
Because they've gotten their act together. And because we haven't gotten our act together,
Naiwanan tayo.
Naiwanan tayo, and because of that, I feel compelled to go back in to do my bit and contribute based on my experience of the past, and see where we can continue where we left off.
So in short, somebody needs to kick this back in the right direction.
Yes, and there are many of us who were exposed to it in that era that are trying to get back in. So together with them, we hope to forge critical mass, no, in the executive branch, legislative branch, even the judiciary, to forge unity, because unity is so critical. Without unity, we can never move our country forward.
That's right. So, who else is with you on the party, yung Bagong Bayan?
Well, yeah, it's the founder is Dick Gordon, and And I'm the sole candidate of Bagong Bayan for the Senate.
I see.
But I believe that Dick is open to adopting others from other parties, and I'm open to being adopted also by other parties. That adoption mechanism is good because that will set the stage
Parang
for collaboration.
Coalition, yeah.
Yeah, a coalition of sorts, so that at this early stage, we can already talk about collaborating once we get to the Senate.
Are you able to fill up the lineup for the senatorial candidates?
In our case, no. In our case, in Bagong Bayan, I'm the sole.
But I mean to say, with your alliances that you were thinking about.
Well, we're putting...
Stalking. It's enough time.
You know why? The reason why we haven't done it yet is because we're waiting for the final list of senators from the COMELEC.
Of the approved list.
Approved list, oh. Kasi...
Yung ilalagay sa balota.
Yung ilalagay sa balota. Kasi 185 ang nag-file.
Wow, ang dami, ha?
At ang alam namin, the COMELEC is still going through the process of eliminating those na they consider nuisance candidates.
Right,
no?
right.
And those that will be eliminated because of technicalities here and there, no? So I'm waiting for that, and as soon as that's done, then we're going to sit down and see how we're going to negotiate and form a coalition.
But is your plan to really fill it up or no naman?
We don't know. That's
depending on who's there.
That depends on who's left behind and those who fit our criteria, no? Kasi ang critical sa atin are people who are focused on one very important mission, okay? Building a new and better Philippines for all Filipinos, you know, with national unity in mind.
Yeah. So that's good. Well, we need to have a station ID. Sa amin pong pagbabalik, makakasama pa rin natin ang former DILG Secretary na si Mr. Raffy Alunan, and who has also filed for his certificate of candidacy for the Senate. Please stay tuned. Thank you.